We are here at the Accra Ridge Church to observe the piloting exercise for the new voters register. And this exercise has been organized purposely for political parties to test the efficacy of the devices that are going to be used come June 13. The Electoral Commission on Thursday, June 18, organized its final pilot registration exercise ahead of the compilation of the new voters register, which is scheduled to commence on June 30 this year. The exercise, which tested the entire registration system, especially offered political parties the opportunity to partake and assess the registration process. There was strict enforcement of some of the COVID-19 protocols, such as hand washing with soap under running water. Persons who defied the protocol were not permitted access to the venue. Temperatures of participants were taken as well. The next step was to join the queue leading to the biodata entry desk. The queues were somewhat orderly as demarcations were drawn to ensure social distancing. To achieve the practice of same protocol, 2 registration centers were created to bring the threshold down to reduce the pressure. At the biodata entry desk, all personal details including names, names of parents, residents, hometown, and date of birth of registrants were collected. Registrants were then directed to the data entry clerk who entered the biodata into the digital system. To avert errors, the clerk reviews the biodata details with the registrant. Biometrics of registrants including fingerprint and photos were captured onto the system as well. The card is then printed on an A4 sheet and passed on to the next official who cuts it out to laminate it, and that ends the process. Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Shrebo Kweku says the pilot exercise is to test the robustness of the system and devices.
So we are only trying to pilot the new kit and the new operational system. We are going to register anybody who will be available. We want to close at 5. So anybody who will be available will register the person. And we are thinking that by the time of that we hit 5 o'clock, we should have registered around 80 people.
Head of Public Affairs at the Electoral Commission, Sylvia No, reiterated the Commission's stand on the clustering of polling stations for the exercise.
Each registration center is going to experience registration, so that we are not saying that the cluster means that we are going to take out some registration centers and then put them together with others. Clearly, we are saying that each registration center is going to experience what we call the registration of votes when we begin the registration exercise on the 30th of June. So kindly put your ears on the ground. Truly, if you are qualified, if you are a qualified applicant, wherever you are, we entreat you to come over and register peacefully. We have put on, we are rolling out our safety protocols. We are making sure that there's adequate security to take care of each and every one of us. So we are safe.
The NDC's National Director of IT, Osei Kwame Griffiths, pointed out some flaws of the exercise.
During the said pilot, I would not prefer to call it a pilot, but as they indicated, their said pilot exercise, there were a lot of challenges, where even a machine that had just arrived, 3 people in the queue were observed to have been have been registered already. So these are questions that I believe the Electoral Commission would be able to answer. There were, issues of downtime of the machines, and it also appeared as though they were using that to test their online systems. So as connectivity was lost, they halted whatever they were doing and made sure, connectivity was restored. And if, in fact, they were testing their online systems, then this regional capitals was not a good representative sampling sites for the entire nation. As you would agree with me, the regional capitals would have the best of connectivity as opposed to district and other villages where connectivity would be very poor. Now, it was also observed by us that the Electoral Commission indicated in their release, which I believe you have copies before the pilot, the said pilot, that as they observe the issues, they will be fixing them. And some of the issues, as it was observed during Dr. Farijan's time, required major changes in the system. But as they issued that communication, the equipment were already on the sea coming to this country. So the question that begs for answers is that what was the intention of the Electoral Commission going into what they call the pilot, when in fact the machines had already left the factory? If you doubt, you can take the timeline the Electoral Commission had given, that they were going to start last week then. They were going to start last week of June. If the machines were not already had been shipped, that timeline couldn't have been given. So we believe that the said pilot was just a way they were trying to check the box.
Some observers of other political parties gave their submission on the observations.
I think that if you go back to the Abu Ramadan and Nimakon versus the Electoral Commission, they petitioned the Supreme Court that some people had used the National Health Insurance Card for registration. Now, if you look at this Form 1A, there is a row for the kind of card number you are using. And I use national identification, so my number is quoted here. And if you use a passport, the number is quoted here. On the CI 72, which was used then, there was no row here. So people who use the National Health Insurance could not be traced. So it's like Gary mixed with sand. So if we are to throw all that away and start afresh, it is in order. Secondly, in 2015 October, the Electoral Commission mounted a panel chaired by the late Dr. V.R.A.C. Crab at Alisa Hotel on the issue of new voters register. The report of V.C.R.A.C. Crab indicated that as at that time, 2015, there were over 583 dead people on the register. If you extrapolate that to 2020, I can say that there are over 1 million people on the register. So they need to purge the dead people from the register.
I think it could be a bit better, but for some reason, I think they had a few technical issues. But after a while, it started moving. So personally, I think we're on the right track. I think it's a brilliant idea that the EC have come up with this new voters register registration, because as we all know, we have death in the family, we have kids that are coming up to be 18 years of age. So I think it makes perfect sense for them to start the new voters registration.
The Electoral Commission of this nation keeps throwing dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. They make everything feel comfortable in their speeches. But when you come to the reality of the ground, it is nothing to write home about. Why am I saying this? They made us understand during our IPAC meetings that with regards to measures on how to prevent coronavirus, it's going to be fully in place. For a start, as an exhibition day, you come to the ground and Veronica buckets are not plenty. And you don't even know where you are supposed to go and wash your hand. There are no sanitizers. There are no other measures put in place. Now, if this is even the regional capital, then what about the decentralized places? Then it means that Electoral Commission does not really believe that corona is existing.